Good morning, class. Sandeep, can you hear me? Sangeet? Sangeet, can you hear me? Agi,
Yes, sir.
how are you?
Sir, fine.
So let's start the class.
Sir, we are having exam at 11 o'clock. Therefore, many of our friends have not joined.
No problem. So let's continue. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So far we have studied the interference part, where we discuss different kind of interferometer based on the amplitude splitting interferometer and the Bertrand splitting interferometer. Now today we are going to start a new part, a new section that is known as the diffraction. So basically, if you see they are very similar things in between the interference and the diffraction phenomenon. In both the cases, we see the superposition of the light beams, and then we see the fringes pattern like maxima and minima. Okay. But there are certain conditions applied to the diffraction. Then we can say that this interference pattern or this superposition will give you the diffraction, not the interference. Okay. So here also we see the superposition, but there is a certain condition, and that condition applied to the diffraction, and that's why this diffraction is a special case of the interference pattern, interference phenomenon. Okay. So if you see in your house also or in the surroundings, so if there is a light source is coming, and then if you put any aperture on the light, suppose this light is coming from the top, from the bulb, then I'm putting some obstacle like this pen or something in the path of the light. Then if you see, if you put behind the screen on behind this, put the screen behind this obstacle, then you see certain kind of shadow. Okay, that shadow basically there is two kind of shadow you will see. So if you see that shadow is going through the rectilinear propagation of the lights, means wherever the shadow will be formed, there will be no light, and after the shadow, you will see the light phenomenon. So that will prove that light is propagating in a rectilinear propagation on the straight line. But if we apply certain condition to the size of this obstacle, okay, then we see certain different phenomena, and that phenomena is known as the diffraction phenomena. So that we'll see by the on this some diagram how we can differentiate this diffraction phenomena and the interference. Okay. So let's consider, suppose we have a plane wave. Diffraction. So here we have a plane wave instead of this. So this is the propagation of the plane wave. This is the direction, and then suppose we have a aperture here. This aperture having like this. Okay. So this is the obstacle. Basically, you can say obstacle or aperture. So you see that here from here, there is only a small hole in this area, and let's say this area with each b, small b. Okay. Then what we see normally that according to the light, we know that light propagate in a rectilinear path, okay, straight line. So what we'll see if you put a screen here, you will see that light, it is expected that light will receive only in this region. The light propagates in the straight line. So only in this region we see the light. That is the expectation from the earlier theory, that we know that light propagates in a straight line. And since here this is the opaque, only here it is a opening here. Okay, so light will pass only through this region, not through this region, not through this region. And light propagates in straight line. So we see the light in this area. Okay, this is the expectation. But what happens now? Suppose so. Let's say this is the area AB. Area we see, we expect the light is there, illumination of the light, and this part is known as the geometrical shadow. Geometrical shadow region. And in this area, we don't see the light. Okay, only light we see in the area in the center because of the illumination of the light. Okay, but suppose we apply a certain condition to this aperture size. Okay. So the aperture size condition suppose is B, and suppose now B is greater than lambda. Okay. So when B is greater than lambda, then we see this kind of pattern. Means the only will get the light in the region of AP, and the geometrical shadow there is no region. So we can see that no pattern. But suppose now if our aperture size are equivalent to the wavelength of the light incident. So this the wavelength of the light is lambda. So if B is equal greater than or equal to lambda, then in this case we see the diffraction pattern. We see the diffraction pattern on the screen, and also we see the some intensity can be seen in the geometrical shadow. So in this case, we see some light in the geometrical shadow region. So here also we see some light. Here also we see some light when V is equal to or greater than lambda. Okay, and this is the case when we see the diffraction phenomenon. Okay, in this case we see some light is propagating like here also and here. So that's how we define the diffraction when compared to the interference. When we see the interference, then there is no condition to the aperture size, okay, with respect to the wavelength of the light. But here, when we introduce the diffraction, so only we see the diffraction when this condition applied to the aperture size. Okay, so this is the very basic difference between the interference and diffraction. Okay. Now, based on this based on the diffraction can be characterized into the two two parts, that two category basically. So one category is known as the Fresnel diffraction. Fresnel is the scientist name, and he invented this that kind of diffraction. And another is known as the Fraunhofer diffraction. So first we will see the what is the Fresnel diffraction. So in the Fresnel diffraction, basically the distance between the source and screen is at the finite distance from the aperture. Okay, so basically we see the distance. So in the Fresnel diffraction, suppose this is the aperture, and this is the screen, and suppose we have the source, point source we are using. So here is the source, This is the aperture and this is the screen. So distance of the source, this distance and this distance should be finite. Then if we see in this case the diffraction pattern on the screen, so that is known as the Fresnel diffraction pattern. Okay. Similarly, one can explain. So one can explain the another category of the diffraction that is known as the Fraunhofer diffraction. So let's see in this case. Fraunhofer diffraction. So we see that in the Fresnel case, the source and the screen they are at the finite distance, but in this case it will be at the infinite distance. For example, so as you can see that in the Fresnel diffraction pattern, the distance from the of the screen from the aperture, this distance should be infinite. And also the source distance from the aperture is also infinite. Then if you see the diffraction in this case, so that is diffraction is known as the Fraunhofer diffraction. Again, Fraunhofer is the scientist who invented this to design this diffraction, this case. So the question arises that how we will get that screen should be infinite and how the source should be infinite from the aperture. Okay, because in the earlier case, Fresnel case, we see that both the source and screen were finite, so we can put at the finite distance in the laboratory and in the house and everywhere we can do that. But how we see the diffraction in this case? That the screen is also the infinite. It means if you want to see the diffraction phenomena, so you have to go to the infinite distance from the aperture. And also you have to put your source at the infinite distance away so that we can see this case. And we know that if you put a source at the infinite distance, then it will not propagate, it will not have the sufficient intensity or the power that can reach to the aperture. So this is really very big problem. So this problem can be solved by introducing the two lenses. We know that lenses having the property of that it can bring to the infinity to the focal length. Okay? So we need to introduce two lenses in the both the region, in this region and in this region. Okay? So now let's say we put a lens here and I also put a lens here. So using these two lenses, we can bring this source to the infinity. How? So let's see this. So now we know that this is the point source. So it will illuminate the light in all the directions. Spectral electron will come. And if we put this source at the focal plane of the lens, then this light will be parallel. Okay. After the lens, light becomes parallel. So the light is now parallel. What is the meaning of this? Light is parallel means it is coming from the infinite. We can assume that when this is these are the parallel light, so they are coming from the infinite distance, and now this condition can be satisfied. So now we have the source emitting the light from the infinite distance to the aperture. Okay. So this is the solve that the infinite distance is the source from the aperture. Now what will happen in this case? So in this case, we know that screen, if you put the screen at the focal plane of the lens, so this distance, so if you put the screen at the focal plane of the lens, then we will see that this will also bring the infinity to the focal plane of the lens. Okay. So also this problem is solved by introducing the lens before the screen at the focal plane of the lens. Okay, suppose this is the f1 and this is the f2. This is the focal plane of this lens, this is the focal plane of this lens L1, this is lens L2, and then we'll see the diffraction phenomena in this case and this case. So in this way, we can bring the infinity to the in the finite region using the introduction of the lenses. So this category is known as the Fraunhofer diffraction pattern. So in most of the cases, we usually discuss the Fraunhofer diffraction pattern. Also, we can discuss the Fresnel diffraction. And there are some conditions there. So now we are going to discuss the single slit diffraction pattern. So the single slit diffraction pattern. This is very basic. First diffraction phenomenon is called diffraction. Single slit diffraction. So in the single slit diffraction, it means that we need to see the diffraction phenomena occurs due to the single slit. So what is the single slit? Means there is one opening. So we have a long, infinite long slits and there is small opening in this region. Okay, so since we want to see this is a larger picture, so we can put. So okay, so this is our single slit. So we have to see that there is a small opening here, and the width of this opening is between from this to this. Width of the slit is this. Okay, and then now we have to introduce a parallel plane. This parallel plane wave is incident means the light is coming from the infinite distance. That's why they are parallel. Okay. So this is the plane wave. Then on this aperture single slit. Now, what will happen? Now we have to put a lens here. This is the Fraunhofer diffraction pattern, and this is. Okay. Hello. So we see that now. So here in the single slit, so light will incident on this aperture. So here we assume that each point of this opening of this single slit, each point will behave like a point source. Okay. Each point will behave like a point source, and each will be emit the spherical wavefronts. Okay, so this will emit the spherical wavefront, this will emit the spherical wavefront, and hence all the light, all the wavefronts coming from this point source during the propagation, they will superimpose to each other, and that superposition of the light will be collected by this lens, and then at the screen we see the superposition phenomenon, and since we see the diffraction pattern on this display. So to derive the mathematically what is the complex field we see, which kind of pattern we will see on the screen. For that we have to assume, we have to do some mathematical calculations. Okay, so let's do. So for that we have to calculate the optical path difference, optical phase difference, and then we can see that when we see the maximum, minima, and other things. To do so, we have to do the geometrical propagation of the light wave from these point sources. So for that, let's consider 2 point source first. Okay. So just for the calculation, I'm taking this 1 point source. This one is emitting the light. So let's say this point is on A1, and this is emitting the light. So I'm taking one ray from this point source. Now, similarly, one can take this point source and giving the name A2, and then this will also emit the parallel light like this. So we know that the light which will travel A1 will travel lesser path, while the light emitting from the point source A2 will travel larger path because it is going at an angle like this. So to check that what is the optical path difference, so optical path difference to know, so we need to draw a perpendicular from this point source A1 on A2. Okay. So this is the equal path from here and here. That is the perpendicular. So let's make it, this is the A2 prime. Now the optical path difference, that extra path that light A2 will travel is A2 prime, this distance. And let's say this is the theta. So we can write that optical path difference here OPD is A2 prime. Now we are also considering that if the distance between the two consecutive point source is delta. So let's say delta is distance between two consecutive point source. So here the two consecutive point sources are A1 and A2. So the distance between A1 and A2 will be delta. Okay. A1, A2 is delta. Now let's consider that there are n point source from A1 to AN. From here to here, total point source are n is total point source. So the distance B can be written as, so we can write B is equal to n minus 1 delta. This is the B. That there is n point source and distance between 2 point sources is delta. So n minus 1 delta is equal to the B. Okay. So also we can write that optical path difference A2 prime. So optical path from this geometry we can see that this A2 prime is equal to A2 prime will be equal to delta, this is the delta, so this is delta sine theta. So we can write here also A2 prime equal to delta sine theta. So this is the optical path difference. So now we can write the optical phase difference. So the optical phase difference we can write. So this so that I can write the mathematical formulation. So optical phase difference is equal to pi, and it is, we know that 2 pi by lambda into OPD, and OPD is nothing but delta sine theta. So it will be 2 pi delta sine theta. This is the pi. So we have calculated the optical path difference and optical phase difference between the two consecutive point sources, and it is given by phi and the A2 prime delta sine theta. Okay. So now let's see that if the field at point P due to the disturbance emanating from point A1 is a cos omega t. Means here, as we see that we have this was the lens, this is the screen, and this is the A1, and this is the point A2. So light reaching from this point P because of A1 is a cos omega t. So a cos omega t is the complex field due to A1 point source. So similarly, we can write the complex field at point P because of A2, second consecutive point source. So it will be A cos omega t minus phi, because we know that phi is the phase difference between A1 and A2. So A2 will travel the same complex in A2, but extra phi phase difference. And this is the complex field A2 point source at point P. Okay. So similarly, we can write the third due to A3 point source. What is the complex field at point P? So because all the light emitting from A2, A3 will be collected by the lens, and they will meet at a point P. That's why we want to calculate the total complex field at point P, emanating from the A1, A2, A3, An point sources. So every point source will emit complex amplitude of A cos omega t minus 2 phi. So similarly, we can add the total complex field at point P by adding this amplitude. So if you add this, so we can write the resultant field at point P. So the resultant complex amplitude at point P is given by equal to A will be common because A is here, A is here, A is here, so A is common. Then cos omega t plus cos omega t minus phi plus cos omega t minus 2 phi plus dot and the now we are going to write the complex field because of the nth point source. So it will be cos omega t minus n minus 1 phi. So this is the E is a complex field at point P emanating from A1, A2, A3 and An point source. Okay. So with this we can write like this. So we can use a geometrical the trigonometric relation that we know that the value of cos omega t plus cos omega t minus phi plus dot cos omega t minus n minus 1 phi. This is equal to the summation of this all the term inside this big bracket. This is equal to the value of sine n pi by 2 divided by pi by 2 into cos omega t minus n minus 1 pi by. So the whole term inside the bracket is equal to this term, and this term is consist of sine function as well as the cosine function. So we can replace this bracket term by this sine function and the cosine function, and then we can rewrite this resultant complex amplitude at point P. So let's write it. So now we can write E equal to A, and then whole bracket will be replaced by this term sine n pi by 2 divided by pi by 2 into cosine term omega t minus n minus 1 pi by 2. So this is now complex field, and it is having the sine function and the cosine function. Okay. So now we see that this term a sine n pi by 2 divided by pi by 2 is the now this is the amplitude and this is the phase. This is the complex total is complex amplitude. Complex amplitude will have the amplitude as well as the phase part. So this is the amplitude a sine n pi by 2 by pi by 2, and this cosine is the phase part. Now again we have to apply certain condition that earlier we have chosen that there is only n point source, but now we are going to consider that this n point source is going to tends to the infinite point source. Then what will happen? So suppose we are going to consider the case, so I'm going to write this, that if n point source is going to tend to infinity, means we are having the infinite point source. So what will happen? Then the distance between the two consecutive point sources will be decreasing because we are increasing the point source. Okay? So delta will tend to 0 because this n tends to infinity, and in such a way, so we can write that n lambda, the multiplication of n lambda is equal to b. The b is the constant size of the width of the finger tip. So we can write that n delta tends to b, and then we can write from here that the optical phase difference, we know that phi is equal to 2 pi by lambda delta sine theta here. Okay, so we can write this is phi by 2 is equal to pi by lambda delta sine theta, and again we can write, if you multiply by n, we can write n pi by 2 equal to pi by lambda and delta sine theta. Okay, and we know that n delta is equal to b here. So we can write this is equal to pi by lambda b sine theta, and this is equal to n pi by. So we use this relation. Okay. Further, we can write that now the phase we can write 2 pi by lambda b sine theta by n. So now the phase difference we can write in terms of the b. So phi will be 2 pi by lambda 2 pi by lambda b sine theta divided by n. Okay. So now we'll see that. So let's see the amplitude part. Amplitude is the a sine n pi by 2 divided by pi by 2. Okay. So if we consider that phase, if the phase is difference is 5, if 5 tends to 0, means it's very small value. If 5 will be small, then what will happen? So we can write that sine phi by 2 by phi by 2. So basically here there is a small correction. This is the sine phi by 2, not phi by 2, sine phi by 2, the denominator. So if this changes to 0, then we can write sine phi by 2 is equal to phi by 2. That is a very small value. So sine by theta will become theta like that. And then we can write the amplitude part E naught. So I'm going to write here. So it becomes now the amplitude becomes A sine n phi by 2 by phi by 2. Like this. And we know the value of phi, so we can put the value of phi is equal to 2 pi by lambda b sine theta by n here. We can put it. Or we can put value of n phi by 2. So both way. Either you put n phi by 2 or you put value of phi, both give the same value. So I'm going to write this by putting the value of phi in this term. Okay. So we can write this. So the amplitude will be A will be n A sine inside the bracket phi b sine theta phi b sine theta divided by lambda and again whole divided by phi b sine theta divided by lambda. And then if you solve this, so some term will be go whole direction. So we can write this. So I'm going to rewrite whole term. So E naught we can write equal to A sine beta by beta. Okay. So what is the A? So A is nothing but the n into A. Okay. And this is the A, and then beta we have taken. Beta is nothing but the phi d sine theta by lambda. So this is the amplitude part, and phase part is there. That is the cosine function. Okay, so we can write the total field, total complex field. We can write. So we can write the complex amplitude. So this is only E now. So total E is given by A sine beta by beta. A sine beta by beta. This is the amplitude part, and then phase part. This will be cos omega t minus beta. So this is the phase. This is the whole amplitude. Okay. So this is the complex field. Similarly, one can calculate the total intensity. Okay. So let's note down the total intensity at point P. So intensity distribution at point P is given by I is equal to E complex field into conjugate complex conjugate of E. So E into E star, and then if you write, then you can write that is equal to A square sine square beta upon beta square. Okay, and then further we can generalize and we can write that this is the I naught. Okay, sine square beta upon beta square, where I naught is equal to A square. We can say that this is the intensity at theta is equal to 0. So at theta is equal to 0, the intensity is given by I naught. So this is the total ingredient. So in the next class, we'll plot this function, how the complex amplitude and how the irradiance will look like, how the maximum, minima, how the interference fringes, interference fringes will look like in the transition.